I was married for 11 years. 11 years of waking up next to a man who said he loved me, who promised to protect me, who slid a ring on my finger in front of 200 guests and told the world that I was his forever. His forever lasted 11 years. Then he found someone younger, someone prettier, someone who didn't have stretch marks from bearing his children or crow's feet from worrying about his business, or a mother who had spent the last decade slowly dying of Alzheimer's in a facility that cost $12,000 a month. His name was Richard Hayes, third-generation real estate developer, owner of a chain of luxury apartment buildings that he'd inherited from his father and promptly run into the ground. I had married him when I was 23, fresh out of college, naive enough to believe that love was enough to fix a broken man. It's not. It never is. Broken men don't want to be fixed. They want someone to blame for their brokenness, and wives are the perfect targets. The divorce was brutal, not because I fought it. I didn't. I was too exhausted, too worn down, too busy caring for my mother and my 2 young children to mount a defense. Richard's lawyers were sharks. My lawyer was a friend from college who specialized in real estate, not family law. I signed the papers without reading them properly because Richard had told me it was just a formality, and I was stupid enough to believe him. I lost everything: the house, the car, the savings account my mother had set up for me when I was born. Richard argued that I had failed to contribute to the marriage financially, which was true because I had spent 11 years raising his children and managing his household and pretending to be a good wife, while he gambled away his inheritance on bad investments and worse women. The judge awarded me primary custody of the children, which was the only thing I wanted, and child support, which Richard never paid, and alimony, which Richard challenged every 6 months, dragging me back into court again and again until my legal fees ate up whatever money I managed to earn. I moved into a small apartment with my 2 daughters, Emma, 9, and Sophie, 7. I worked 3 jobs: mornings at a coffee shop, afternoons as a receptionist, nights editing legal documents for a freelance client I'd found online. I slept 4 hours a night. I ate ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. I watched my mother's condition worsen, knowing that I couldn't afford to visit her more than once a month, because the bus ticket cost $20 and $20 was a week's worth of groceries. Richard, meanwhile, married his younger woman, a 26-year-old named Brittany, who had been his personal assistant. She moved into the house I had decorated. She drove the car I had picked out. She slept in the bed where I had given birth to our daughters. And she smiled at me every time we crossed paths at school events or parent-teacher conferences, with the smug smile of a woman who had won a prize she hadn't earned. I hated her. I hated Richard. I hated the court system that had let him take everything from me. But most of all, I hated myself for being so stupid, so trusting, so willing to believe that love would protect me. The revenge started small, almost by accident. I was working the morning shift at the coffee shop when Richard came in with Brittany. They didn't recognize me at first. I had cut my hair short, stopped wearing makeup, started dressing in clothes that were practical rather than pretty. I was a different person than the woman Richard had married. Harder, leaner, angrier. Richard ordered his usual, a double espresso with a shot of vanilla. Brittany ordered a caramel frappuccino with extra whipped cream. I made their drinks. I handed them over. I smiled the smile of someone who is paid to be nice. And then, as they walked away, I noticed something. Richard's wallet was on the counter. He had left it behind. A black leather wallet, thick with credit cards and cash, monogrammed with his initials. I picked it up. I meant to call after him. I opened my mouth to say, "Sir, you forgot your wallet," but I didn't. Instead, I slipped the wallet into my apron pocket. I finished my shift. I went home. And that night, I went through Richard's wallet with the focus of a surgeon dissecting a specimen. There was nothing particularly incriminating. Credit cards, a driver's license, a gym membership, a photo of Brittany that made me want to throw up. But there was also a business card, a small, unassuming card with a name and a phone number and nothing else. The name was Marcus Thorne. The phone number had a 305 area code, Miami. I didn't know who Marcus Thorne was, but I knew Richard, and I knew that Richard didn't keep business cards for people he met at networking events. He kept business cards for people he was doing business with, the kind of business that required discretion. I called the number the next day from a payphone across town. A man answered. His voice was low, professional, carefully neutral. Marcus Thorne. I'm calling about Richard Hayes, I said. I'm his ex-wife. I have some questions about your business relationship. There was a long pause. Then Marcus Thorne laughed, a cold, humorless sound that raised the hair on the back of my neck. Lady, he said, you have no idea what you're getting into. That was the moment I should have hung up. That was the moment I should have thrown the business card away and gone back to my 3 jobs and my ramen noodles and my 4 hours of sleep. I didn't. I asked Marcus Thorne to meet me. He agreed, probably out of curiosity, probably because he wanted to see the face of the woman who was stupid enough to call him. We met in a diner in a part of town I didn't know existed. Marcus Thorne was not what I expected. He was young, younger than Richard, maybe 35, with sharp features and sharper eyes, and the kind of stillness that comes from knowing exactly how much damage you can do. He was wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly rent. His hands were clean and manicured. He was also, I learned over the course of our conversation, a money launderer. Richard had been laundering money through Marcus for 5 years. Not large amounts, nothing that would attract federal attention, but enough to hide income from the IRS and, more importantly, from me. The child support he wasn't paying, the alimony he was constantly challenging, he had the money, he just didn't want to give it to me. Why are you telling me this? I asked Marcus. Because Richard owes me $200,000, Marcus said, and I'm tired of waiting. You help me get my money, I help you get yours. I should have walked away. I should have taken the information to the police, or to a lawyer, or to anyone who could have handled it legally. But I was tired. I was broke. I was so full of rage that it had become a physical presence in my chest, a second heart beating in time with my own. I made a deal with Marcus Thorne, not a legal deal, not a moral deal, just a deal. I would help Marcus recover his $200,000. In exchange, Marcus would give me the evidence I needed to reopen my divorce case and claim the money Richard had hidden. The plan was simple. Marcus had records of every illegal transaction Richard had made. Wire transfers, shell companies, fake invoices, the whole paper trail. But the records were stored on a server that Richard controlled, and Richard had recently changed the passwords. I knew Richard's passwords, not because I was a hacker, because I was his wife. For 11 years, I had watched him type his passwords into his laptop, his phone, his tablet. He had never changed them because he was lazy and arrogant and he didn't think anyone was watching. The password for his email was Emma Sophie, our daughter's names. The password for his banking was Brittany Love, his new wife's name. The password for the server where he kept his illegal records was Hayes Real Estate, A8, the year he'd graduated from college. I gave the passwords to Marcus. He accessed the server. He downloaded everything. And then he disappeared. Not literally. He was still in Miami, still doing whatever it was he did. But he vanished from my life, leaving me with a USB drive containing every dirty secret Richard had ever tried to hide. I took the USB drive to a new lawyer. A real lawyer this time. A woman named Diana Chen who specialized in high-conflict divorce and had a reputation for making men like Richard cry on the witness stand. Diana looked at the evidence. She looked at me. She smiled the smile of a predator who has just spotted wounded prey. "We're going to destroy him," she said. It took 18 months. 18 months of depositions and hearings and motions and counter-motions. Richard fought everything. He hired 3 different lawyers, each more expensive than the last. He tried to have me arrested for hacking his server. He tried to have the evidence thrown out. He tried to bankrupt me with legal fees. But Diana was better than his lawyers, and the evidence was irrefutable. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. Richard was ordered to pay back child support for 6 years, nearly $250,000. He was ordered to pay my legal fees. He was ordered to transfer ownership of the house, my house, the one I had decorated, back to me, and he was referred to the IRS for criminal investigation of tax evasion. Richard lost everything: the house, the car, the savings accounts. Brittany left him within 6 months, taking half of what was left. His real estate business collapsed under the weight of the tax liens. He moved into a studio apartment on the other side of town, the same kind of apartment I had lived in when I was eating ramen and sleeping 4 hours a night. I didn't feel sorry for him. I didn't feel anything. What I felt was empty. The revenge was complete. The money was mine. The house was mine. The children were thriving. My mother had died peacefully in her sleep, 2 months before the final ruling, and I had been able to afford a private room and a nurse who held her hand at the end. But the emptiness remained, because revenge doesn't fill the hole. It just clears the rubble so you can see how deep the hole really is. I spent a year in therapy. I spent another year rebuilding my life. I went back to school. Not for law, not for business, but for art. I had always wanted to paint. Richard had told me it was a waste of time. I spent the first year of my new life painting every day, filling canvas after canvas with colours I had forgotten existed. My daughters watched me paint. Emma, now 15, asked me why I painted the same woman over and over again. The woman in my paintings was always looking out a window, her back to the viewer, her hair a tangle of dark curls. "That's me," I said. "The woman I used to be. The woman who didn't know how to fight back." "But you fought back," Sophie said. She was 13, sharp as a tack, already planning her own escape from anyone who tried to control her. "You won." "I didn't win," I said. "I survived. There's a difference." I don't know if they understood. Maybe they will one day when they're older and they've seen how the world treats women who trust too much. Or maybe they'll never understand because I've made sure they'll never have to live through what I lived through. The house is mine now. I painted the kitchen yellow. Richard had always hated yellow. I planted a garden in the backyard, roses and lavender and a small vegetable patch that the girls helped me tend. I work part-time as a freelance editor, just enough to pay the bills, just enough to keep busy. And Richard, he calls sometimes. Drunk, usually. He tells me he's sorry. He tells me he made a mistake. He tells me he still loves me. I hang up. I don't block his number because I want him to know that I'm not afraid of him anymore. But I don't answer. I let the phone ring and I go back to my painting and I think about the woman in the window. She's turned around now. In my latest painting, she's facing the viewer. Her face is calm, her eyes are clear. She's not smiling, but she's not frowning either. She's just there, present, unafraid. That's the real revenge. Not the money, not the house, not the satisfaction of watching Richard lose everything he cared about. The real revenge is this. I am no longer the woman who married him. I am someone else, someone stronger. Someone who knows that love is not enough, that trust must be earned, that the only person who will ever truly protect you is yourself. My name is Violet Hayes. I am 41 years old. I am a painter, a mother, a survivor. And I am done being the victim of anyone's story but my own. If you're reading this, and you're in the middle of your own divorce, your own betrayal, your own long night of ramen noodles and 4 hours of sleep, keep going. It gets better. Not because the world gets kinder, but because you get harder. You get sharper. You learn to fight back. And one day you'll wake up in a house that's yours, in a bed that's yours, next to a life that's yours. And you'll realize that revenge was never the point. The point was freedom. The point was being able to paint a yellow kitchen without asking for permission.